Hi, Michael Force here again with Rise, the Digital Marketing Master Course, lesson number 8. Lesson number 8 is all about educating, enlightening, and enriching your customers. Why teaching is the best way to sell. Okay, a lot of people sell really the wrong way. Most of the people that we're introduced to, like car salesmen or retail salespeople, those are really the worst salespeople in the world ultimately, and why they have such a bad reputation. The best salespeople in the world are marketers and people who create content to sell. Think of Oprah. Think of a lot of the other gurus out there, the Robert Kiyosaki's or the Anthony Robbins, if you will. These guys know how to educate and sell at the same time. And they're really master marketers when it comes to that kind of stuff. They know how to create content and add value to the marketplace that gets people to want to buy by them educating them through the process. And to be honest, Digital Altitude is exactly that as well. And again, I'm very transparent when it comes to this stuff. Digital Altitude is a training platform. It's an e-learning platform. It's a live event coaching and training. So essentially that's what we're doing here is we are selling products around educating people. Obviously universities and online e-learning and all the stuff that people have been spending money on for the last 100 years, education, training, that is all around this lesson here. So let's jump into lesson number 8 and teach you really how to teach to sell. And we'll do that for you here. So I'll see you on lesson number 8. See you on the inside. See you there. Hello, Michael Force here again. Welcome to lesson number 8 of the Rise Digital Marketing Mastery course. This is Educate, Enlighten, Enrich. Why teaching is the best way to sell. Let's dig in. It's easy to forget that most people, especially in today's rapidly paced world, have absolutely no clue about their own needs and very little education about their problems. This means that even with so much access to information, they don't have a clue as to how to solve these problems, since they don't even recognize them in the first place. Most people in today's world lay still in quiet desperation, oblivious to what's really going on inside of them. The average human being has so many things on their mind to keep track of and so many tasks demanding their attention that it's hard for them to get the education and information they really need in order for them to truly understand the nature of their problems in the first place. Therefore, our prospects are making all kinds of intuitive guesses about their problems, and as you've probably experienced when you think you understand something, yet you really don't. They attempt to solve the problem but end up only making it worse. In addition to this, when we humans have problems, when we have fears, frustrations, and pain, we tend to pull inward, to become closed off and completely introverted, because when it comes to our own problems, we usually feel too embarrassed to open up. We feel shame and guilt, hesitant to talk to others about our personal issues. Therefore, we go to work on trying to fix them alone, without the help of others, even if we have no clue or understanding on how to solve the problems in the first place. This is an additional example of how we tend to make things worse. So by the time we're desperate enough to get out and try to find help, the situation will have simply gotten so much worse, and at times past the point of no return. Education as you market and sell products and services can be effectively used to help people identify their problems and to help solve them. On our part, educating our prospects can really help credibility and trust, which are both essential precursors to our prospects taking actions. What we're going to talk about now in particular is the concept of education as marketing. Education as marketing is an idea that I originally got from Jay Abraham, again, the modern marketing guru. Regarding education as marketing, Abraham said that when you're selling and marketing, oftentimes you'll notice that your customers themselves don't even know enough to make a good decision, since oftentimes they don't know enough about the problem in the first place. They simply know that they've got a fear, a frustration, a pain that got themselves into a situation where they now have a want, a desire, or an aspiration, but don't know how to get it. So oftentimes these folks need some guidance to help them get to a point where they can make a well-informed decision. In this context, you can really make the most of using education both to help people solve their problem and to help them clearly see what the problem is in the first place. And again, when you educate and provide useful information, if you do it well, it helps build credibility and trust, both of which are essential for your prospect to take action. People won't make decisions in your favor. They won't buy things from you or invest their hard-earned money and time in your product or service unless you have some sort of trust and credibility with them. And to earn this trust and credibility, education as marketing can be used effectively for specifically that purpose. Now I'd like to talk to you about a form of education as marketing that is exploding onto the internet, and it even has a name. It's called content marketing. This new form of marketing has evolved alongside the mainstream adoption of the internet, and again has become content marketing, which basically has to do with creating content that attracts prospective customers. This is really the ultimate education as marketing in practice, as is typically the form of an educational tip, video, blog article, etc. So, you may have recently seen all of these websites popping up that focus on giving various tips and content information like eHow, and even websites like YouTube and others, which are packing themselves with a wide variety of useful and informative content like how-to tips and more. And the reason why these websites are so successful has to do with the people's insatiable desire in wanting to know how to do things. They want to get an education on a topic, to figure out how to solve a problem. And since we currently live in the information age, and with a knowledge-based economy, all people everywhere are using knowledge to help solve all of their problems specifically, because just about all problems nowadays are knowledge-based. This is content marketing, and this is why it's just absolutely exploding. In addition to this, the entire way that search engine rankings work are now largely dependent on the quality and quantity of content, on the usefulness of a website's content to the reader, and on the quality of education that one has on this particular website. This is exactly why, if you noticed, a huge portion of websites nowadays, no matter what products or service they offer, have a blog for their audience to peruse. And I found out how truly valuable content marketing was and how increasingly valuable it has become and keeps becoming. In fact, I'll teach you some techniques later in this program to help you get the most out of content marketing. But the point is that you can use education as a part of your marketing and your sales process. You can create content pieces, educational tips, articles, videos, or whatever that you can put out online, and therefore you can jump on the bandwagon of people that are using the strategy very, very successfully to market their products and services. Now, along with content marketing, we want to be aware of what you might call the content trap, because content marketing is also very alluring to those marketing chickens who would prefer to avoid any kind of selling or marketing. So don't allow yourself to become distracted. Remember that content marketing is also a means to an end. It's not the end itself. Remember that the best content marketing utilizes all of the power tools of direct marketing. It doesn't skip them. By itself, content marketing doesn't pull in highly qualified prospects, doesn't get them interested in your product or service. It doesn't build with them trust and rapport or trigger them a desire or an aspiration. By itself, content marketing doesn't turn your prospect into a customer, into someone who will buy things from you. Rather, content marketing by itself just gives out more information that takes up mind share and takes up more of your prospect's time. It also takes up your time, which especially to you means money and resources. So unless you're using content marketing in conjunction with your other marketing strategies, you're simply doing nothing except giving people stuff for free. So as we're talking about creating education-based marketing, as we're talking about creating content marketing, and as we're talking about creating useful, valuable tips, websites, articles, and videos that will go out and do your marketing, we must not forget everything else. Remember, we're not just talking about making more stuff that people can look at. We're talking about actually making everything where learning here and wrapping up in a form of an article, or wrapping it up in the form of a video, or wrapping it up in the form of an educational tip. We're not going to abandon what we've learned here. We still need to identify our customer. We still need to create a customer avatar and know where to look for them. We also need to understand all of their rational psychology and to identify their emotional hot buttons. We must know the language they use to talk to themselves. Finally, we need to know their fears, frustrations, their wants, lacks, aspirations, and fantasies. And then we can create content. This way, when we create our education marketing, it will be tuned specifically to that prospect, to that avatar, and we'll be using all of the power of direct marketing in order to pull them in, to build trust, and to educate them. But at the same time, it will be educating them in a way that will trigger a desire to make a decision to actually buy your products and services. So let's talk about another version of education marketing and content marketing. This is what we call editorial marketing, which is a time-tested way to increase attention and interest marketing materials. Editorial marketing is where your marketing materials are formatted in an editorial style or design, such as the style and design of infomercials, advertorials, megalogs, blogs, and other formats which exemplify the strategy. It must be kept in mind that the design of your marketing piece alone can increase or decrease its views and engagement by 500% or more. Okay, so in a deeper sense, what is editorial marketing? What is an editorial? Well, editorials are used to describe journalistic pieces that you might see inside of a magazine or a newspaper, or inside of a clip that you might see on a news program or on television. This is all considered editorial, and when something is in an editorial format, like an article in a magazine, or a post in a blog series, or a piece on the news program, it's immediately perceived as true. It immediately gains credibility since people don't subconsciously perceive it as having any commercial slant. To illustrate, if you see something that's laid out like a newspaper article, people will automatically read it with their defenses being down. They will approach it as if it must be true, or at least decently credible, all because of the way that it's designed. So editorial marketing, in essence, is actually taking advantage of all the subconscious trust and of all the automatic responses that have been built up to the types of designs that editorial publications and programs use. So, I'm just saying here to simply take your marketing piece and lay it out so that it looks like a news piece, news program, or blog article. And just like that, you'll be able to dramatically increase your response. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I believe it was David Ogilvy on advertising who demonstrated in his test that just by taking an advertisement and laying it out like a news article in a newspaper, that readership would increase by 500%. Okay, so what could possibly be going on here? It turns out that the advertisers and marketers, those of us that are trying to sell our stuff in magazines and newspapers, on the radio and in television, and on the internet, it turns out that we unconsciously believe the need to make our advertisements look like advertisements. Then we make our ads look like and sound like ads. Then they will look, sound, and feel to customers like they have no value. And so they don't even get read or so much as glanced at. Just think about when you're surfing the net and you see a banner ad. You don't even look at it anymore because you know it's where the ads are, which means it's useless. It's clutter, so it must be ignored, no matter what it may contain. When you're watching a television program and the ads come on, you just skip them. Commercial time is when you get up, go take a break, and leave the television, because you simply don't perceive that anything which is formatted like advertisements are of any value. This is why infomercials have now adopted, and you guessed it, editorial format, where they set up to teach, educate, and inform, although they have included the sales message somewhere inside. Another example can be seen with advertorials, which are ads that are located inside magazines, but are laid out to look like regular magazine articles. You may have actually seen these before. They say advertisement at the top. They have headlines and pictures and columns of text, again, laid out just like an editorial magazine, except in the end, they ask for a certain sales-oriented response. Another example is the megalog, which is something formatted to look like a magazine, except that it's actually a catalog. And when you open it up, even though it makes for interesting reading, there's always something being sold at the end of every one of those articles. In addition to all of these, blogs are now often being used to sell because the blog format is seen as basically the standard editorial format of the internet. So formatting your marketing and your sales pieces like blog posts can alone significantly increase your readership engagement and trust. So the point to take away from all this is that if you want to increase your readership, if you want to increase your trust and response rates, stop designing advertisements, stop designing marketing pieces, and start designing useful, educational, friendly-looking, informative content, and put your marketing inside of this content. Do this, and not only will you win the trust, readership, and viewership of your customer base, but you will also gain their full engagement and increased response rates, which in the end mean more sales and more customers. As a final note, pay attention to the details. Start increasing your response in your results. So dramatically by simply laying out your marketing of formatting a bit differently from now on. Start paying attention to how actual editorials, how news sites, blogs, magazines, and educational videos design and format their content, and how they design and format the structure of the information itself. Begin using these styles and these formats to increase your response. Notice how the design is. Notice what they say first, what they say second. Notice the colors, the fonts, and the alignments. Start paying attention to all the little details, because those little details offer clues that human beings follow to decide what to look at, what to pay attention to, what to trust, and more importantly, what to respond to. We'll get into more details and tactics later in this program, as well as learn exactly how to do this. But for now, what I'd like you to do is start paying careful attention to all the details of content, editorials, and of educational materials, so that you can start using these layouts and designs and architectures for your own marketing and sales materials. So let's do an exercise. Becoming an educational marketer. So get a pen and paper, and to answer these 3 questions in the exercise. First, where does my prospective customer have misinformation or lack of information that is dangerous to them? In other words, what do they know that really isn't so? Or what do they know that could hurt them, or at least could prevent them helping them anyway, in some way? You'll also notice that when your prospects are somehow misinformed about selling or something, or lack certain information which without it would be dangerous to them, you'll notice that just the fact of giving them this knowledge will motivate them to trigger in them the desire to act, which is your entire goal in the first place. Next, what information, if my prospective customers were to learn it, would help them see just how important it is to solve their challenge now instead of waiting? Also, every single time that we have a fear, frustration, desire, or aspiration, you'll notice that we usually don't think through to what's going to happen if we don't take action and solve it now. Especially because people don't tend to take action unless it's absolutely necessary. That's a huge problem, because if we don't solve certain things now, they will usually get worse. Opportunities will pass away, and we'll get into more of a hole than the one they were in before. So again, what information, if my prospective customer were to learn it, would help them see how important it is to solve their challenge now instead of waiting? After knowing the answer to this question, we can educate them by providing them this information. Finally, what types of educational materials can I create that would both educate and sell my products and services? Basically, how could you create educational materials that would educate and sell your products and services, and also really feel like high-value content? All right, so let's go ahead and get the answers to these 3 questions, and I will see you in the next lesson. Take care.